And I'm going to rope that one and the mental health change into one, because the mental health change is probably the biggest change that's going to happen very likely this year. I generally recommend the very easiest thing to do for veterans is look at what you are service connected for and then say, hey, am I underrated for any of these conditions? Or was this condition rated last year or 3 years ago and it's since gotten worse? Because our disabilities, generally speaking, aren't going to heal over time. It's actually the inverse, where they get worse over time. So can you give us some 2 cents on increases for VA disability?
Clay, you brought up a great point there, and the reality is that there's three different reasons why you would want to file for an increase. And before I jump into that, the first thing that you should do is file your intent to file,
Mm-hmm.
right? It buys you the time, it gets you that 12 months to get your act together, right? Then what Clay said, very important, right? You want to know where you're at so you can know where you're going. Now, you want to get all of your ratings together, know what percentage you are for each one. Then you're going to have to cross-reference that with the schedule of ratings. Now, look, here's the reality. It's going to take a little bit of work. You're going to
Yeah.
have to put a little bit of work into this, but you know what? You have to treat this as though it is a multi-million-dollar deal, because guess what? It is. VA compensation, especially in the higher percentages, is multi-millions of dollars for somebody who files it in their earlier years over time. Not just the compensation piece itself that's paying you each month tax-free, but also the VHA aspect, healthcare for free. Go imagine, right? So when you look at increases, there's three that I like to think about, Clay. One is the VA screwed up and didn't rate you as high as you were supposed to be. So you need to correct that, asking for an increase. The second one is what you had already talked about, which is my condition has gotten worse over time, and now I warrant an increase. The third reason to file for an increase is a rating schedule change. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, we have the
A good
mental
point.
health rating schedule, potential change that should be happening that's going to eliminate the need for your complete and total social and occupational impairment, deleting that out for the 100% mark, which is going to open the door for folks to be able to reach that if they're currently, let's say, in a 70% rating. So a rating schedule change could warrant an increase. The VA is not going to do you any favors. They're not going to file it for you and go, oh, well, now you rate. No, they're going to wait for you to file that claim. So those would be my kind of three versions. I'd love to hear your thoughts on a couple of those, or all three even, Clay.
Yeah, so when a veteran looks at an increase, it's tricky because it's got to be backed by evidence, right? So technically speaking, you could have zero current evidence and file for an increase because it's already service connected. That's the hard part. The service connection is the hard part, which would need the big three, right? The in-service event, time in service, the current diagnosis, or the nexus. That's been decided. So that's out. That's out of the window. Now the VA and you are focused on the percentage for that disability. So technically, you don't need evidence, but I always recommend veterans get current evidence for whatever increase they are that they're going to submit for. The reason why is because if you do not submit your claim, specifically an increase with evidence, the CMP examiner's word becomes the staple, right? And we all know, I don't want to sit here and bash CMP examiners, although they make it really easy to do that sometimes. That's a choice you make. If you submit an increase without evidence, you are choosing to trust the CMP examiner, which could be in your favor, right? It could very well not be in your favor. And so I would always recommend veterans seek their healthcare team, whether that's private or VA. And side note, if you use private, make sure you upload those records. But let's talk about what evidence looks like for an increase, because it's not just saying, "Hey, my tummy hurts." Okay, it's a little more than that. And so you mentioned cross-referencing the 38 CFR, which is perfect. And I'm going to rope that one and the mental health change into one, because the mental health change is probably the biggest change that's going to happen very likely this year. Um, And so we definitely need to talk about that. So let's say I'm 70% for mental health and I'm planning on submitting an increase when the changes come down. Here's what I'm going to do. One, I'm going to look at the schedule ratings for the new mental health, right? The 5 domains, the 5 in the criteria, and then levels of the domain. And then I'm going to say, okay, with these symptoms, I'm going to understand what the VA is looking for, and then I'm going to relate that to myself and say, hey, what am I experiencing? Do I have cognition problems? If so, what does that actually look like in my day to day life? Whatever that looks like for you, then I'm going to talk to my healthcare team. I'm going to say, hey, doc, I think I have cognition problems. I got X going on, I got Y going on, I got Z going on, and then all of a sudden, now you have evidence. And so even if you submit the increase and you get a very, very, let's just say not so good CMP examiner and they say ABC, you have the evidence of XYZ to back it up. And so that is whenever higher level reviews really do come in clutch, is when you have the evidence. I always say that there's evidence is like the veteran safety net. You can always kind of lean and feel comfortable if you have evidence, versus the opposite. Because if you don't have evidence, whatever that CMP examiner said, that's it. Bottom line, bottom dollar. There's nothing you can do about it. And that's probably my biggest 2 cents on the increases. And it really it is exactly what you just said, just kind of said it a different way, is understand schedule ratings, especially for the mental health changes. Did that spark any thoughts on increases, or do you want to move on to secondaries?
Yeah, no, I'll chime in one more time here just to kind of double down on some of the things you said too. When you're looking to file that increase, it is absolutely imperative that you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
You have to. It's not there's no other way. You have to look at the schedule of ratings, because one, you could be going for an increase that there is no increase to it. You could already be at the maximum level and not even know it. Or you might not even rate the next level up. You might actually be lucky at where you're at, and you could potentially even get reduced, which a lot of us have heard about that before. So you need to read the schedule of ratings for your specific condition. What my recommendation is, in a perfect world, right? The perfect world is you look at your current rating or ratings, you cross-reference it with the schedule of ratings. Now, look, I get it. The schedule of ratings can be a bit cumbersome. If you're trying to go into the VA's website and you get to the schedule of ratings, then you got to look at the different body systems. Then you got to click on the body system where it says schedule of ratings. And then ideally that opens up in a Word document. It can be a little bit funky. Then you got to find your condition. You can also just Google search your condition, whatever it is, VA rating schedule or schedule of ratings, either way. Up will pop 5 or 7 different attorneys that have cut and pasted the same information into their website. They should be, ideally, up to date, because they're attorneys practicing in veterans law. So it's their whole wheelhouse. I normally suggest only go directly to the source, the VA, but if you're having issues with that, this is a second option. So you want to read that schedule of ratings, and like Clay was saying, really think about it. You are the patient. Read it. If you don't know what the certain words are, it's some medical term, Google search to translate it into real words, right? Then if you feel as though you warrant that higher rating, that's not where you stop. You need to go get that evidence, like Clay said, super important. In the ideal situation, you're going to take that snapshot for that specific condition, for that next level up rating, whatever it is, whatever, 4 words, 8 words, 2 sentences, whatever it is that they're looking for. You want to take that information with you to your doctor. Now, there's 2 things you can do. You can have your doctor place that information into their notes that would be then printed out and used as evidence, right, in your treatment records there. You can also, if you have a great relationship with your doctor, have them write down a little letter for you talking about you as the veteran patient has experienced this condition for however long, and make sure that it all corresponds with what your original information was, because you're already service connected. You're not getting a nexus letter here. What you're doing is you're just getting a letter from your doctor that outlines your condition has gradually gotten worse over time, and now you're experiencing. Insert that information from the schedule of ratings, and then let the doctor wrap it up. And if you have any questions, please contact my office, blah, 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 signed Dr. So-and-so, right? That makes it really easy for the VA rater to go, oh, okay, well, this is directly from the doctor, and here's the rating schedule. I mean, that's a match. So here we go. It's not cheating. It's not, if you experience it, you experience it. If you don't, you don't. If your doctor agrees with you, they do, or they don't, and they will or they won't write the letter, right? I mean, it's that simple. Believe me, no doctor is going to put their license on the line for you to go get a VA rating, okay? So another way you can go about it is the DBQ, right? You can utilize the DBQ. Now, I do have a little pet peeve with DBQs. I think they're great, but I think that veterans get misled thinking that DBQs are great, and all you need to do is hand a blank DBQ to your doctor and say, can you fill it out, get it back, and then submit it. No, because garbage in is garbage out. Your doctor doesn't know what the VA is looking for. They don't know what the VA is looking for to assign specific percentages. So you need to provide that information, again, from the schedule of ratings to your doctor so they could put it into that DBQ for you.